welcome back to my channel. I am happy to have you here today. I am really excited because today I'm going to be talking about 24 books that I read in 2024, 20 of which I really loved, and 4 of which I didn't. Here's your reminder to subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video if you like the video. Also leave a comment if you agree with any of my opinions, disagree with any of my opinions, or just want to say hi. I'm pretty new to this whole YouTube thing, but I'm trying to be more consistent with my uploads, so hopefully this is first of many for the weeks to come. So first I'm going to start with some of my 5-star reads for 2024. Most of the books that I'm going to be talking about that I loved are 4-star reads because my 5 stars are few and far between. What is that saying? I don't have a lot of 5 stars. I'm pretty picky with my ratings. I only gave 3 books a 5-star review in 2024. So I will be talking about those 3 books, and then I will be talking about 17 other books that I gave 4-star reviews to. And then the books that I didn't love are going to be books that I either gave a 1-star or a 2-star review to. Not any DNFs because I don't rate my DNFs. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a little bit of a disclaimer that all of the books that I'm about to talk about are probably someone's cup of tea. Even the ones that I didn't love, somebody out there loves. You might have really enjoyed a book that I didn't love, and you might have hated a book that I loved. That's the beauty of reading, is that everybody has a different opinion and has different tastes, and we're all different. And that's what's so cool about the book community. So for the books that I didn't love, I definitely don't want to give any hate to those authors. They wrote a book, and that is such a huge accomplishment on its own. And there are large communities of people who love these books. My opinion does not reflect everyone's opinion. And if you hear me talk negatively about a book that you really love, just know I just didn't love it. But that doesn't mean that we won't agree on other books, and that also doesn't mean that you can't love it. So I just wanted to clear that up before we get started. I'm not the target audience, and that's okay. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is actually the first book that I gave a 5-star review for in 2024, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. It's based on Ted Bundy and his final murderous spree before he was caught. But the characters in this book aren't real characters. They're just based on real characters. And we kind of follow multiple viewpoints, and there's a lot of really good quotable lines in this book and things that really stick with you. Just the idea of following these women who were affected by a serial killer, it kind of flips the narrative of true crime. I used to be someone that was personally really into true crime. I am not so much anymore, and I kind of got pulled away from the true crime industry when you hear about how some of that stuff affects victims' families, and it kind of inflates the serial killers to be this bigger than life image when that's not really the case. This book showed us the viewpoints of the women that were affected instead of us following the serial killer. It also talks about the nature of the true crime industry itself and how poisonous it can be. I just really liked it, and it gave me that 5-star feeling. I thought the writing was really eloquent and beautiful, and I thought the characters were really fleshed out and people I wanted to root for. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This was my book club's pick. I probably wouldn't have picked it up if not for book club. So I'm really happy that I did. The second 5-star read that I had in 2024 was The Ministry of Time by Kayleigh Bradley. This book surprised me because it's a science fiction, and I don't pick up a lot of science fiction. And it's about a woman who works for an agency that assigns her an expat to live with her. And the expat is from the past. He's from 1845. And he died in an Arctic expedition, but the Ministry of Time is able to go back and save these people from death. So he didn't actually die, but according to everyone who knew him, he died. It starts as this roommate dynamic. I don't want to give too much away, but this book gets really crazy. One thing that I really enjoyed about this book, I feel like with all of my 5-star reads, they're very quotable. I definitely found this to be the case with this book. I remember finishing it and sitting there and thinking about it for weeks after I finished reading it. I just kept thinking of different takes I had. It's one of those books that really has rounded out characters and makes you think about all of their motivations. There is no clear-cut good and evil. It's flawed people involved in a flawed system, and it just really gets your brain turning. I actually was really into highlighting this book. There's a lot of corporate speak, things that happen that kind of make you laugh. There's a quote that's on page 6. We were told we were bringing the expats to safety. We refused to see the blood and hair on the floor of the madhouse. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this book, and that's not a spoiler because that's on page 6. There's a lot of metaphorical speak in this book. It's also just really interesting how the ministry behaves as kind of this corporation that is as flawed as any corporation you would find today. There's safety regulations that aren't really considered. There's not enough information given. Basically, this ministry needs a better HR department. They don't really think through the repercussions of a lot of the corporate things that they're doing. This book also has this underlying message of people that are just doing their job, which is interesting when you think of real life times in history when we've seen similar situations. And on top of all these really thought-provoking themes of what it means to follow commands, I definitely did not guess at any point where this book was going. I think that's all I can say about it. I love, love, love this book. This probably was my favorite book of 2025. I would love to talk more about it, but I don't want to give too much without sounding really spoilery. So hopefully that intrigues you enough to read it. I went into it pretty blind, and I would recommend doing the same. My third and final 5-star was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This book was really cool. This is a book about a kingdom that has a dark magic affecting it. And the magic system is really interesting because it operates with these 12 Providence cards. So kind of like a deck of cards. Each card comes with its own kind of magic. So if you own one of the cards, you can use the magic in the card. But our main character, for circumstances that are outlined a little bit later in the book, is kind of cursed. She basically has to collect these 12 Providence cards to break her curse. And she has other people who are working with her. It doesn't actually really say. It just says that they have to find the cure. So I'm not going to give any more information. There is a little bit of romance. I think the magic system was one of the most intriguing parts of this book. It was very easy to understand, but also really creative and nothing I'd ever seen before. I really enjoyed the main character. I loved being in her head and being with her throughout the book. I liked the love interest, and something happens at the end of this book that I really enjoy a lot in books. This Barnes & Noble version is beautiful as well. It had kind of that gothic element to it as well. So I think that made it really interesting. The 17 next books that I'll be talking about were books that I rated 4 stars. I know everyone kind of does their rating system a little bit differently. For me, a 4-star book is a really good book. For most of them, the only reason they were a 4-star and not a 5-star is just from one little thing that wasn't quite hitting that 5-star. And I'll try my best to explain that when I talk about the books too. The Spite House by Johnny Compton. This is a horror book. We have a main character and his 2 daughters. We open with him on the run from something, and we don't know what from, but he's looking for some quick money, and he's looking for a job that won't ask a lot of questions. He finds the job of caretaking this old spite house in this town, and he basically has to live in it with his 2 daughters and document any paranormal things that he finds. This book was really creepy. This was a really good horror book. It doesn't say what I was gonna say. I was just reading the back because I want to make sure that I don't spoil anything that's not on the back. As you're reading it, you feel like you're in this house going insane. And it is just so unsettling and creepy. And I really, really liked it. There's moments that made me think, this would be so good as a movie. There's this one part where one of the daughters is exploring this certain building, and the creepiness of her exploring this building is so good. it just gives you goosebumps and it freaks you out. The characters are cool too. You don't know a lot about them at first. You don't know what they're on the run from. You don't know what has happened in their past. You don't really know if you should relate to them or trust them or like them. The reason why this wasn't a 5-star for me was because the ending felt a little bit rushed. This one was directly under, so I'm going with this next, another horror book. This is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This book didn't really read as horror. This book is about Dracula's first wife. We follow her through the many, many, many years of her marriage and through the different people that are brought into that. The main character's name is Constanta, and she is a really cool main character. She doesn't start out having a lot of personality. She's actually turned into Dracula's wife pretty young, but as we follow her throughout the story, she grows a lot and matures a lot. It's very empowering. It's a really cool take on the traditional Dracula story. I felt like the writing was also really easy to read. I think I read this book in like a day, maybe a day and a half. So yeah, definitely a good quick read. The only reason that this wasn't a 5-star for me was because once again, the ending felt a little bit rushed. Also, the epilogue. I don't know why we're doing epilogue. I like the uncertainty. I just wish we would have kept it a little more open-ended. Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice by El Cosimano. The Finlay Donovan series has been one of my favorite for a while. I discovered the first one on Kindle randomly a few years ago, and then I read that one, really liked it, really liked the second one. And then the third one I was actually a little iffy about because it felt a lot like filler. But then the fourth one, this one, knocked it out of the park again. I loved it. It's kind of a cozier mystery series, but it's basically about a woman who is an author, and she's heard discussing her new book with her agent in a restaurant, and a woman mistakes her for a hit woman. The woman asks if she can pay her to kill her husband. What I love about the Finlay Donovan series is the outrageousness. I know a lot of people don't like it because it's unrealistic, but that is what I like the most about it. I like how she kind of stumbles her way into accomplishing things. Something that the first and second book did so well that the third book kind of missed and then was brought back in full force in the fourth book. This kind of like tripping and falling and killing people-esque energy. And the hijinks that her and the other main character get into are just really funny, and it actually makes me laugh out loud. Also, all of the side characters in these books are really good too, and this one takes place in Vegas, so it's really fun. The only reason that I didn't rate this one a 5-star was because they're fun reads, but they don't give the kind of intricate prose, but that doesn't mean I don't eat them up every single time. That's not to say that I'm only rating some highbrow book a 5-star. That's not what I mean. I just mean if I'm not wanting to highlight things in the book, then for me, it's probably not going to be a 5-star. The Last Word by Taylor Adams. The Last Word is a book of the month book that I got that looked intriguing. This is a book about a reader who's staying and house sitting at this kind of secluded cabin in the middle of nowhere. And she reads a book and she hates it and she gives it a 1-star review, and the author starts stalking her. The reason that it wasn't a 5-star was because I did predict a lot of the plot twists. I fear I have just read one too many thrillers, unfortunately, but I did like how it gave creepy, unsettling vibes. Something that I really enjoyed about this book that I don't find is the case in a lot of thrillers is this book made me very emotional. The main character was really humanized, and I feel like in thrillers we don't get that a lot. We usually kind of get less formed main characters than in other genres, which is fine because you don't really need a fully fledged out main character in thrillers, and sometimes the less fledged out they are, the more you can have plot twists and stuff that involve them. I found myself really wanting to root for her the entire time. This book made me cry, and I don't remember the last time I cried at a thriller, so I had to rate it pretty high. It was really good. I feel like I'm ending every single one of these with, it was really good. I just need different words, you know, instead of saying everything was really good, I need to say everything was spectacular. This was outstanding. This incredible piece of literature. Next, we have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. It's a gothic fantasy with a subplot of romance. And this, in the most basic way, reminded me a little bit of Caraval, because in Caraval, you have these games that these two sisters are participating in. And in this book, you have a game that two sisters are participating in, but it's different, obviously. It still has that kind of basic premise, so I felt really intrigued by it. Our main character is a necromancer who inherits her mother's powers and her mother's enormous debt. And so her sister decides to enter Phantasma to pay off the debt, because if you win Phantasma, you win a single wish, and so she's going to wish to pay off the debt, probably. So her sister enters, and our main character follows her in. Phantasma is a cursed manor with all of these different trials and paranormal creatures and stuff like that. It definitely gave some horror elements. There are certain parts of this book that are pretty gruesome. The fantasy premise was really cool. The competition premise was really cool. Where it fell flat for me was the romance aspect. I was going into it expecting more of a dark romance and got more of a light romance, which is fine, but I just feel like my expectations were a little different. And then I also did predict the ending. I think I've read too many books. That was a bit of a bummer, but I really enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the whole time reading it. This is a really thick book, and I didn't ever feel like it was too long. I was really savoring every chapter. I loved the competition, seeing how she was going to get through these games, and it made sense the way that she did. It wasn't unrealistic. Next, we have Yellowface by R.F. Kong. This book is about a woman who is kind of friends. She's like ex-roommates with, they're both writers. One of them is really successful. One of them hasn't really gone anywhere with her career. And our main character is the one who is not successful. So she watches her friend die in front of her and decides to steal her latest work and publish it as her own. It's also an interesting story about stolen valor, because our main character is white, her friend was Asian, and the story is a novel about the unsung contributions of Chinese laborers during World War I. So our main character changes her last name to sound Asian, and without outright saying that she's Asian, pretends to be Asian. Our main character sucks. She thinks she deserves everything and thinks that she doesn't have to answer for anything. She is just pretty much the worst. I wasn't really rooting for our main character. I was rooting for her downfall. And that was intended by R.F. Kong. It is an interesting book about the literary world. I learned a lot about publishing that I didn't know. And it's an interesting critique about racism and, like I said, stolen valor, stolen heritage. I read this one a while ago, so I don't remember why I didn't give it a 5-star. It was probably just because it didn't give me that 5-star feeling, which I know kind of sucks to say because I wish I could give you more of a reason, but I think that was probably the reason. Wedding People by Alison Espach was one of my book club picks. I never would have picked it up if it wasn't. Trigger warning on this book. I'll put it on the screen. I am going to be talking about it. So if you don't want to hear mentions of self-harm, then please skip to this timestamp. It's a contemporary fiction book about a woman who goes to a gorgeous resort hotel, bringing nothing with her. And within the first few pages, you find out that she has gone to end her life. Well, there, she finds out that the resort has been completely booked out for a wedding party, and she kind of befriends the bride. This is kind of a character study book. It's not really plot driven. It's very heavily character focused. I would even say that this might classify as a literary fiction. I don't know, because don't trust me on that. I've not read a lot of literary fiction. She has a lot of people from the bridal party she gets to know over the course of this weekend. And there's an interesting dynamic between her and the bride and kind of the trivial things that the bride wants and finds important. We get a decent female friendship, but it's not really focused on the friendship. It's more focused on what meeting the bride does for the confidence and the self-worth of our main character. This book actually inspired me to buy Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf because of how much it's mentioned. Let me find a good quote for you. She could only imagine beautiful people doing beautiful things, but right now she feels equally beautiful, more beautiful. She is alive, enchanted. I have fingers, she thinks, and brings them to the surface of the water. Look at these magical fucking fingers. I love this quote. This is one of the first quotes I highlighted. She doesn't see the point in staying alive, only to do all the same things that made her want to die. This is what I mean when I say a quotable book. Like a book that just makes me want to highlight it. The writing feels like I could eat it. It feels like I want to chew on it. Does that make sense to anybody else? You might think that this sounds like a 5-star book for me. It would have been, but something happens in the ending that I didn't love. And I felt like, in a way, it kind of partially undid a lot of the main character's growth. So I'm not going to say anything more about it. You should definitely go read it for yourself. You might really like the ending. The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was thrilling. This book got me, and that doesn't happen that often anymore, so I was really happy for that. This book is about a woman who lives in a house. She's basically a functioning alcoholic. She is a recently widowed actress. She lives in her family's lake house and watches the house across the lake, this glamorous husband and wife, and kind of thinks about what it would be like to live their life. She saves the woman from drowning one day. This is all on the back of the book. And then they strike up a bond. And then that woman vanishes. So this book is about our main character trying to figure out what happened to her friend across the lake. I promise that whatever you think happened to her, you're wrong. This book blew my mind. Something that I really like about Riley Sager in all of his books, if you've read any of his books, you would know this. He kind of flirts with, dare I say, the paranormal. Give this book a read. 4 stars and not 5? I don't know. It just didn't feel like a 5-star. Sorry. Next, we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. It was my first Emily Henry book I've ever read, and my only Emily Henry book I've ever read. This book is about a couple named Harriet and Wynne who have been together a really long time. They're kind of like the Monica and Chandler of their friend group. Every year, their friends all go to this Maine cottage. This year that the book takes place, the cottage is for sale, so it's the last year that they're all going, and our 2 main characters have broken up and not told their friends. So there's kind of this little bit of like a fake dating, but it's a lot deeper than that. The characters are so fleshed out and so realistic. One of the friends, who's kind of like the organizational friend, the friend that always plans everything, that is me. She is very realistic, and the way that her friends interact with her is very realistic. It felt like my friend group. The romance was also really good, and so it's like a kind of a second chance romance. I hated the reason that they broke up. Hated it. That is why I didn't give it a 5-star. I don't read a lot of contemporary romance. This intrigues me into picking up more Emily Henry in the future. So let me know if you've read Emily Henry. I know she's a really popular author, what your favorite books are, because I've heard a lot about book lovers and beach reading. Well, we're on the contemporary romance train. Another book that I 4-starred was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. It's a second chance romance again. It is a single mom and best-selling erotica writer. Her and her ex, like childhood, teenage sweetheart, meet up again. They weren't like a couple when they were teenagers, but they basically had like one night together. Since then, they've been writing each other into their books because they're still madly in love. This book was really good. I also read this in the beginning of the year, so I don't have a ton of in-depth notes about it, but I also remember the characters in this book being very realistic. The smut scenes in here were really good. Really good. Ending, I loved. I would definitely pick this up, especially if you're not a big romance reader. It's a really good intro to romance because there's a lot more going on in the books outside of their relationship. And I feel like that's really helpful to have if you don't read romance a lot. This is Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. I got this in an Illumicrate box. It's kind of like a closed door You know, when you think of like an Agatha Christie mystery where everyone in the room is a suspect, it takes place on a ship. It's kind of like that. It's not just a mystery, it's also a fantasy. Each person that's on the ship is an heir of their own little like factions of the kingdom. Each faction has an animal representation. So you have like Fish Province, you have Tiger Province. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, where the provinces that are lower in number are more well off, and then the provinces that are closer to 12. No, it literally has 12. It's very similar to the Hunger Games in that way. I'm just realizing now talking about it how similar it is, because you even have a 13th one that no one talks about anymore. All of the heirs have a certain gift, they have certain powers, and each kingdom is responsible for something else. So like Fish Kingdom is responsible for supplying the land with fish and with food, but they're all going to basically this mountain to get their blessing. And so the 12 heirs are on this ship together. One of them dies. It's this closed boat mystery. This was a really enjoyable book. I was sitting more at like a 3-star rating until the twist. And then I raised that baby up. Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, another Riley Sager book. The worst thing to ever happen on Hemlock Circle occurred in Ethan Marsh's backyard. One July night, 10-year-old Ethan and his best friend and neighbor, Billy, fell asleep in a tent set up on a manicured lawn in a quiet, quaint New Jersey cul-de-sac. In the morning, Ethan woke up alone. During the night, someone had sliced the tent open with a knife and taken Billy. He was never seen again. Ethan returns to his childhood home while his parents are out of town. Strange things start happening. They may or may not be linked to Billy's disappearance all those years ago. There's a lot of characters in this book. Everybody on the cul-de-sac kind of has their own affiliation. It's one of those mysteries where as you learn things, everybody has a part. So it's like, oh, because that person was doing that, this happened. And once again, Riley Sager does a really good job. My camera died in the middle of that sentence. And then when I went back to record the rest of the video after my battery charged, I just didn't mention that book again. So I just want to wrap up what I was saying so that you know what I was going to say about that book. That Riley Sager does a really good job of flirting with the paranormal themes in his books. And this book does a really good job of that too. There's a sequence where like a garage sensor light is turning on and it's really chilling. And he does a really good job writing that kind of scene. I like that. I know some people would rather like you commit to the paranormal or you not commit to the paranormal, but I kind of like the way he does it. So I will definitely be reaching for more Riley Sager books in the future. Once again, the ending felt a little bit rushed for me. I liked seeing all those pieces slot into place, but I really wanted to see them slot into place slower. So back to the video. My camera died and then I went and ate dinner and changed, and now I'm back to film the rest. This book is called The It Girl by one of my favorite thriller authors of all time, Ruth Ware. I've basically read her entire backlist. This is a book about a woman named Hannah who went to college with a group of friends, including her roommate, whose name was April. And April was murdered, and the man who was convicted of her murder, now present day, has died in prison. And a reporter reaches out to Hannah about how they believe that the man who was convicted is innocent. So she's kind of trying to unravel that, and she's delving deeper into the mystery of what actually happened to her friend. This book follows a past and present timeline, so you get current day Hannah, and then you get her college days as well. I found the college days a lot more interesting than present day Hannah. I really liked the dynamic of the friend group, but I actually think the real reason that I gave this book 4 stars is because I went into it completely blind. I don't really read the descriptions of Ruth Ware books before I read them because she's an auto-buy author for me. I remember not being able to predict a lot of the twists, but if I remember correctly, there were a few untied up loose ends, but I still really enjoyed this book. Next, we have Heartstopper, Volume 4 by Alice Osman. The Heartstopper series is great. It's a graphic novel series about 2 high schoolers, Nick and Charlie, and their relationship. So it's a YA romance. I don't read a lot of young adult romance. I'm an adult, so I like reading adult romances, but I really enjoy the Heartstopper series. The graphic novel component of it makes it really fun because it's just like these super cute little Let me make sure this isn't a spoiler. Like, I love the art style. It tends to kind of lean lighthearted because it's a high school romance, but they do deal with some heavier themes as well. And I just think that Alice Oseman does a really good job of portraying it in this way. And these are always so fun to read. They're such quick reads. My rating system for graphic novels is a little bit different. I enjoyed it. I liked the story. 4 stars. That pile is gonna fall. This is the last physical book that I have, Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty. I was at book club one day and I saw someone else reading this book, and I read the description and it sounded really interesting. This is the most recent book I read. It's very fresh in my mind. This book is about a woman on a flight. She blacks out and she walks down the aisle of the plane pointing at every single person and saying how they're going to die and when they're going to die. Most of them don't take her seriously until the predictions start coming true. Really interesting premise and definitely lived up to the hype. The book follows the woman who does the predicting. Her name is Cherry, and we flash back between her past and kind of her upbringing and how she got to where she is today. And I think we follow about 8 characters from the plane, so it's interspersed with their chapters as well. I got really attached to all the characters. All of the characters that the author has us follow had predictions for a very short life. It's a very character-centered book. We're kind of just watching the slice of life of each person and how they deal with this news, if they deal with this news or if they just ignore it. How would you change your life if you knew you didn't have that long to live? In Cherry's chapters, we talk a lot about mathematical probability because she's really into math. For example, the gambler's fallacy, where at the Monte Carlo casino, the roulette table landed on black 26 times in a row. And people kept losing more and more money because they thought since it's landed on black so many times, it's surely going to land on red next. But each chance is independent of the last chance. So this book mentions things like that, how these mathematical problems and these mathematical statistics have to do with the more magical element of fate. The only reason why this book wasn't a 5 stars for me was very specific to something that had to do with the ending, so I don't want to get into much detail. Those are all of the physical books that I own. I do have 2 that I read on my Kindle. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I always say that title wrong, so I had to look it up on Goodreads. And that is by Carissa Broadbent. It is a Crowns of Nyaxia novel 1. I think there's 3 out right now. It kind of was the cookie cutter fantasy, but it had a little bit of a twist. You have Araya, and she's the human daughter of the vampire king, and she was adopted by him and saved by him. They live in a world where humans are kind of animals almost, they're not that important, and vampires are the ones who have the societies and the kingdoms. There is basically 2 houses that go back and forth fighting for power of this kingdom, like US politics. Her dad is the current king. She wants to become a vampire like him. And so she goes into this competition, and it's held by the goddess of death herself, called the Kajari. And if you win the Kajari, then you're granted a gift from the goddess. And she is going to ask the goddess to become a vampire herself. So it's a very ruthless competition, and she's up against all these vampires, and she's human. It's a really interesting book. There's a romance. I really did like the male character a lot. The only reason that I didn't rate this 5 stars is it's so funny. On Goodreads it says perfect for fans of From Blood and Ash and A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is exactly what the vibe was that I kind of got when I read it. I was able to predict certain things that happened in the book. But I'm excited to read the rest of the series. The last book, Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, that shocked me a little bit. The banter and the sex was really good. Don't be embarrassed about reading your spicy book. You can talk about it. The main character's name is Jordan. It is a boyfriend's, or I guess ex-boyfriend's dad romance. It is exactly what it sounds like, and it's really good. And I would recommend it. And I really enjoyed it. The only critique I really have of this book, and I find this true with all of Penelope Douglas's books, the main characters are really young, and I don't know why they have to be so young. It's not really necessary. I've read a lot of other erotica romance that make the characters a little bit older. That was the only critique I had about it. I really enjoyed the writing, and it actually made me pick up another Penelope Douglas book, which I now have to talk about. Perfect segue. into the 4 books that I hated in 2024. Unfortunately, there were 4 books that I hated in 2024. And once again, I'm sure that some of these books are people's favorites. And if it's your favorite, great. Some people hate Birthday Girl. That's fine. The 2 that I own, I know are spicy takes. The first book that I have to talk about is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I listened to this book on audiobook, and I'll give the caveat that it might have been because I listened to it on audiobook that I didn't enjoy it. I just remember it being agonizingly slow to get to the point. This is a book about an exclusive wedding that's taking place on a remote Irish island. So you follow a few different characters that are taking part in the wedding. So you have the bride, the +1, the best man, the wedding planner, and the bridesmaid. It was kind of obvious to predict. I think because we spent so long drawing out these stories with each of these characters, which I think Lucy Foley did because she wanted you to feel attached to the characters. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to do that, but because we did that, it was really easy to kind of predict where things were going. I think I gave it a 2 stars. There was one twist in here that I really didn't expect at all. Most of the other ones were pretty easy to guess, but I do like to give authors second chances. If there is a better Lucy Foley book that you enjoyed more, just let me know. The other book that was a TikTok sensation is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mirror. The author went viral for a TikTok series where she was pretending to be an assistant to a villain. The series had so many fans that she wrote a book about it. So it sounded like a really interesting premise, kind of this like cartoonish villain and how his assistant would be reacting to different situations. The main character's name is Evie. She gets a job offer from the villain, and it is the classic, what you think of when you think of like a medieval villain. He's beheading people, he's doing crazy hijinks, and then there's a romance between the 2 of them. Where it fell flat for me was I was wanting the book to go down the cartoonish villain route more than it did. We heard about things like, oh, he just threw someone out the window again, or he hung up all those heads again. But then when we would interact with the villain, he was very level-headed and was kind of giving brooding, dark romance villain instead. You know the main characters in the, if you've ever read the Twisted series, those main characters, but put him into this setting. So he was kind of giving like brooding mafia boss. He wasn't giving like Doofenshmirtz. And I wanted Doofenshmirtz, but sexy. And then another interesting thing that we did is we started with her getting the job offer, and then we kind of skipped ahead to where she had this banter with her coworkers and was really at home in the workplace. And I think we could have just started there. I don't know why we had to have them meeting. I think we could have just opened with someone who has worked for the villain for many years and is kind of used to all his hijinks. Think like how we open The Office with Pam, and it's like Pam it's not her first day, and that's why it's funnier, because she's clearly used to all the shit already. And then I also just wanted more cartoonishness from it. And there was a lot of telling and not showing. It was a lot of just explaining the crazy evil things that he would do. And then she would interact with him and he would just kind of seem like a normal guy. Was really into her kind of from the start. There was never really he didn't seem evil. There's a little bit of a cliffhanger in this book. And unfortunately, I don't think I have any desire to pick up the second one. I don't own the other 2 books, and these 2 I'm actually donating. The other Penelope Douglas book that I read was Corrupt. It had a good setup. I feel like we could have gone somewhere really interesting with it, but we didn't. We have the main character, Erica, and then we have her high school crush. It was her boyfriend's older brother. Not really boyfriend. They dated for a little bit, but she was never really into him. He and his 3 best friends would do these kind of like rituals called Devil's Night. Almost think like senior prank, but a little more sinister. So they'd put on these masks and run around town and do various things like arson and punching people. I'm really trying to do it justice, I promise, but they were also all on the basketball team. And so now flash forward years later, he's on the basketball team. They had something go down that night where not the main guy, Michael, but all 3 of his friends were arrested, and she somehow has something to do with it. So the 3 friends are getting out of jail, and them and Michael are going to give her payback for whatever she did to put them in jail. She still has a crush on him. They kind of have something romantic happen that night, way back when, but nothing really came of it. And now she still has a big, huge crush on him. Age is weird again, because he was a freshman in college in the earlier timeline. And she was like 16. It's giving weird vibes. They didn't physically do anything, but he was like making suggestive comments and like, it was just very weird. I'm sorry. I can't explain it any better than that, but I'll tell you what my issues were. You know, when you read a dark romance and you have this brooding guy, it's like, I'll burn the world down for my girl, right? Fuck everyone except for you. He was like, I'll burn the world down with you in it and also fuck you. I feel like in dark romance, sometimes authors have difficulty portraying the love interest as this morally gray character without making them just an asshole. And he was just giving asshole. We also totally forgot about his basketball career. He's supposed to be a professional basketball player. I don't know if I mentioned that. The author didn't mention it, mentioned it once and then forgot about it. So that's the same as I just did. Spoilers, okay? Spoilers. Skip to here if you don't want to hear any spoilers about this book. All of the friends were really sexually into her. The idea of punishing her, like how they wanted to punish her, I thought maybe was just an orgy. I was getting orgy vibes and I was okay with it. But it was specifically just they were trying to like torment her. And apparently I found out the other 3 guys have books, including one of the guys who had non-consensual sex with someone. So don't want to read his book. Get this. So they have this big plan. They lure her to their house and they find out that the thing that they thought she didn't actually do. And then the reason that this all even happened and the reason that they wanted to punish her and the reason that they were all mad at her is dumb. The reason makes no sense. The book makes no sense. If you'd hear me talk negatively about a book that you really loved, just know I just didn't love it. The book makes no sense. The main character, I really liked. The main guy could have been absent from the story and I wouldn't have cared. The main guy was added nothing, like a piece of wet bread, but then a mean one, like just a burnt piece of bread. And then the like actual sex itself, not good. I just can't. I'll never get back the time I spent on this book, and it was 500 pages. I'm gonna read the second one. Hear me out. I'm gonna read the second one because it's Liam's book. Is that his name?
What am I saying? Who is Liam, bro?
The second book is called A Hideaway. It's Kai's book. Apart from Erica herself, Kai was the only redeemable part. Okay, you thought I was mad about that book. Let me tell you about There Are No Sinners by Sophie Lark.
Hey, editing Michaela here. I just wanted to pop in really quick because I know that there's a lot of controversy with Sophie Lark right now. That happened after I made this video. It just takes me a really long time to edit videos. So I just want it to be clear that I do not support Sophie Lark. I will not be reading any more of her work. At least I'm not saying good things about this book, but still I don't want to give any views to talking in any way about her books in the future, so I won't be doing that. But for the sake of this video, it doesn't work with the title if I don't include this book. So I apologize for that, and moving forward, we will not be talking about Sophie Lark anymore.
Who's the main character? It's Mara. Cole. Curtain opens. There are 2 serial killers that are famous artists and use their victims to make their art. They know each other are serial killers, but nobody else knows they're serial killers and they're rivals. How did we get here? I want that story. I want the prequel. How did we come to this agreement where you don't reveal that I'm a serial killer and I don't reveal that you're a serial killer, but we hate each other and we compete in the art world? How did we get here? Anyway, the main character in this book's name is Mara, and she is kidnapped by the other serial killer really early on. She is basically left for dead. And then our main guy finds her, thinks about saving her or having sex with her, does neither, walks away, leaves her for dead. She, by sheer will alone, escapes, and then her and the guy who left her for dead, the second guy, because 2 serial killers tried to kill her. They fall in love. It's a romance between them. She's like a up-and-coming artist, and yeah, I was far more intrigued by the premise of how we got to the dueling artist serial killer situation than I was with whatever Cole and Mara had going on. She was great. Once again, female protagonists, they are outstanding, but Cole was not giving me a lot. That same problem again, where he was just kind of an asshole, and like, you're supposed to be pining. I'll give you an example. In Haunting Adeline, Zayd Meadows, we know he's fucked up, right? We know he kills people, but he's obsessed with her. And that's the thing with Dark Romances too. I don't mind suspending my disbelief. I don't mind existing in a world where there can be dueling artist serial killers. I don't even mind if the main character is a murderer. What I do mind, why are you writing a romance book where I hate the guy? I want guy obsessed. I don't want guy kind of is okay if you die. And then this one again, when it got to the actual sex, thinking about if this is too much to put on YouTube, you'd think a serial killer would be a little kinkier in bed. Yeah, so not for me. That one wasn't for me. Definitely won't read the second one. Thank you so much for watching today. I am finally done with this video. It actually took me a really long time to record. I had a lot of thoughts about these books, which is always a good thing. Once again, if you like the video, please like the video. Leave me a comment if you want to chat about books more. I would absolutely love to. And consider subscribing as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that I gave you some great recommendations, and I hope that you found the books that I didn't love entertaining, at least. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye!